Yo guys, I've got a spark which I'm going to use to ignite the fire for a brand new top 10 video here on the channel. One very well known aspect of the Skylanders franchise is the elemental gates. These were areas of Skylands that demanded Skylanders of a specific element to be opened, meaning you needed at least one Skylander of each element to access everything the games have to offer. It's a good practice as now the figurines practically sell themselves, because the kids need an undead Skylander to access this zone. This extra cost of accessing the gates was mostly worth it, especially since I find that you tend to buy a Skylander for the characters themselves, and being able to access their corresponding elemental gates is effectively a cherry atop the cake. But sometimes these elemental gates really stunk, and it was an insult that you could only access them by buying an additional Skylander. Luckily these cases were few and far between, and usually elemental gates were awesome, which is why I'm here to count down both the top 10 best and the top 10 worst Skylanders elemental gates, both in the same video mind you. So as always, we'll start with the worst list right after the intro has played itself out mind you. Kicking off the worst list at number 10 is the Watergate in Leviathan Lagoon. Everything about this elemental gate is either too simple or too tedious. Even getting to the Watergate, you must travel across water, which puts you at risk of being eaten by the Leviathan and wasting time. Then, once you're inside the elemental gate itself, you must defeat a Hobny Yarrow to acquire the hat. For melee characters, or those with very little speed, this is needlessly difficult, especially since you can't block and stun the enemy using surroundings. The time it takes for characters like Whamshell to complete this elemental gate is absurd. It's a gate clearly intended for Gilgar and Orzap, but you're not guaranteed to be playing with them, so the elemental gate should have had more universal appeal, but it doesn't, hence why it's ranked so poorly in this video. Next up is yet another Watergate. This time it's coming from the Phoenix the Sanctuary, where you only need to do one thing: jump. It's a very simple and anticlimactic gate. It's a good thing you can access this with the starter pack characters, because this really isn't worth the cost of an additional Trapmaster. At least the scenery is quite nice, but the developers can surely have a little more creativity than this. Next up is an elemental gate found in Monster Marsh. We're clearly talking about the gosh-forsaken Dark Elemental Gate, where we have the bane of my existence, the gosh darn pinball game that never feels logical or fair, because all physics are thrown out the window for this janky section that I hated in the Midnight Museum, and for some reason, some stupid developer thought it was a good idea to bring it back. This terrible minigame returns in this elemental gate, and it's just as tedious as it was before. It takes more time than it should, and I hate it. I hate it so much. Yet still, it's only number 8 on the list. At least there's a little more creativity to this one than what there are other elemental gates on this portion of the list, mind you, and that's just about where my praises for this elemental gate begin and end. Number 7 is the undead elemental gate in Rumbletown. Again, not a very intuitive gate. You fight a couple of enemies and then acquire a bomb to blow up a wall with, but you don't even need the bomb if you use Eyeball to access the elemental gate, making it even more simple and not worth the time of day you spend completing it. I hate additional segments and levels that you need to pay for to gain access to, and then they underwhelm you like this. But at least Series 2 Cinder is in the starter pack, but you can't say the same for the Fire Elemental Gate in Junkyard Isles. You've bought a brand new Fire Skylander, and all you've gained access to for your hard-earned cash is a short walk up to the hat. At least this walk is pretty long, and you get some nice scenery along the way. Plus you can at least use your attacks to destroy things and earn some treasure to call your own. Like the other elemental gates leading up to this one, it's simply just lackluster and uncreative, hence the 6th place placement on this worst list, mind you. In fact, something far more interesting than the gate itself happened whilst I was playing through Junkyard Isles to record footage for this elemental gate. A Marbu started flying to who knows where, and he still managed to beat me inside the building. What a funny glitch indeed. It's like I just said, this was far more interesting than what the fire gate in this level has to offer. Auto Gyro Adventure is an epic, fast-paced marathon of a level with creative level design, fantastic puzzles, and constantly shifting gameplay mechanics to keep everything feeling fresh. It's a level I very much enjoy, so it annoys me that it's bogged down by a terrible water gate, where once again, all you do is walk up to the hat and retrieve it. No challenges, no obstacles, you just walk right up to it. Clearly, all the creativity for elemental gates in this level was reserved exclusively for the undead elemental gate, which by comparison makes this elemental gate look even worse. What's the point in even making this an elemental gate in the first place if all you're going to do is walk right up to the hat found inside? You've negatively impacted the flow and pacing of the level as you've docked from the fast-paced flight sequences only to feel underwhelmed. There is a saying on this channel, if it's not Golden Desert, it's an instant S tier level. That saying goes double for elemental gates, where elemental gates outside of the Golden Desert all seem like the magnum opus by comparison. This elemental gate has you walk up to the hat, but it has other obstacles, which begs the question, why not put the hat out of reach and make you interact with the obstacles to acquire it? Without challenge, you're left underwhelmed. You work harder for a frickin' treasure chest for Pete's sake. At least that requires a trapmaster and a lock puzzle to gain access to. This elemental area is so stupid, and the biggest insult of it all is that you have to buy an earth trapmaster for it. Receiving the bronze medal for this list is the air elemental gate from Cutthroat Carnival. The puzzle in the level design comes from actually gaining access to the elemental gate. You need to push a button and flip the boat around. You've done this puzzle already, so it's not exactly a difficult challenge. Then once you've gained access to the elemental gate, all you need to do is walk over to the hat. It's underwhelming and incredibly easy. This time around, you barely even need to move to access the hat, and there isn't any decent scenery to go alongside it, unlike the previously mentioned fire and water zones. It's lazy and uncreative. The only fun part is everything outside of the gate that you need to do just to access it. Since that's not part of the physical elemental gate itself, that's why this gate deserves to be number 3 on the list. But number 2 is the second most tedious elemental gate in the entire franchise. Other elemental gates leading up to this might have been basic, uncreative and boring, but I would take those traits over dull and tedious any day of the week. The fire elemental gate from Oilspill Island doesn't do anything particularly creative, you simply just pick a pipe. There is no indication as to which pipe you should pick, it's simply a guess. Then you have to watch a cutscene afterwards whilst you travel through the pipe, negatively impacting the pacing of the game because you're not actually playing it at this point. You can accidentally wind up going through the same pipe multiple times and looping around. This wastes time and adds to the infuriating tediousness. It's such a forgettable section too that I can never remember the correct path for entering the pipes. It's the same level of intricacy and annoyance as a pick a door in Mario Maker, only that I wish you died when picking wrong so that at least the entire process could have been sped up. Instead, we're left with this dull, slow-paced, and tedious fire elemental gate for Oilspill Island. Man, it really bugs me that a fire elemental gate is this bad. Fire is supposed to be the superior element in this game, but Oilspill Island would have you pulling your hairs out at this elemental gate instead. But for number 1, absolute worst gate in the Skylanders franchise is the undead gate from Battlefield. I have no idea what developers were thinking with this one. Rolling the gigantic bombs is slow and tedious. You also need to roll it uphill, so whenever you fail, which is very often by the way, you wind up having to start it all over again. The mechanics for this are just far too janky and unreliable. The bomb never goes where you mean for it to go. You need to loop around constantly by utilising bounce pads to transport the bomb, and you need to do it twice, repeating the same process over and over again, which drives you insane. I kinda wish you could just build a bridge and walk straight over to the hat rather than needing to go through this terrible process of attempting to push the bomb, inevitably failing, and then having to do it all over again. For a children's game, this is needlessly difficult. I remember playing through this elemental gate for the first time and taking upwards of 2 hours to do it. If the stupid developers really think that 10-year-old me enjoyed that, I sincerely hope that whoever came up with this monstrosity was fired. But it's finally time we talked about the best elemental gates and end off this video on a high note. This portion of the list is being kicked off by the tech elemental gate in Operation Troll Rocket Steel. I bellyached before about elemental gates being simple, but this simple platforming challenge is executed to perfection. You need strategy and patience. Jumping without a plan will result in failing the challenge, making this a fun and fast-paced elemental gate which adds to Operation Troll Rocket Steel as a level, rather than taking away from it. Next up is the Magic Elemental Gate from Chompy Mountain. This one is really creative. Coins fly around the area and you need to collect enough of them in order to advance to the next point. It truly feels magical, making it fit with its elemental theme, and it's more creative than other elemental gates. The escalating challenge is also really good level design. As you progress through the gate, coins become harder to collect and obstacles start becoming higher in quantity, and therefore they need to be destroyed in order for you to get these coins more easily. So now you're using more than just the movement mechanics, and your efforts are rewarded throughout the whole process as you receive a treasure chest and a hat from this elemental gate. It's good fun, and whilst it once again might just be a simple idea, what makes this elemental gate so grand is the perfect execution of that simple idea. Next up is for Watergate in Sky Highlands. Trap Team did a much better job with its elemental gates than Swap Force, and this elemental gate is proof of that because the platforming here is really good. Without patience, you're punished for mistakes by having to start the section all over again. But not only is the platforming well designed, it also loops. A floating block is used multiple times to advance whilst you raise for water levels. It's just a really great way to measure your progression through the section, which is very clever level design. And overall, I just have so much fun and platforming in this elemental gate, and whenever a mistake is made, it always feels like it's my own fault and the game isn't cheapening the experience in any way whatsoever. But at number 7 we have yet another water gate. It seems as though water gates are appearing quite frequently on both of these lists, but that being said, this time it's coming from Troll Home Security, where it's the first time in Giants we actually see a water elemental gate, and they were holding out for something special. This elemental gate is large and extremely well designed. The puzzles are intricate and the way you traverse the area is so cool. You are basically unlocking blocked off sections and looping around whilst defeating enemies and avoiding obstacles. There are cleverly placed hidden collectibles along the way which give you a real rewarding feeling when you're clever enough to discover them. Plus you get an appearance from a fan favourite NPC, and you even have the opportunity to beat him at Skystones. I'm obviously talking about Gurglefin. I just love the vastness of this area. It's very explorable, and the loop and level design with multiple aspects to it is clever. Plus you get the dreaded Gilgren ambush. On harder difficulty, these evil Gilmen are the stuff of nightmares. They have ridiculous damage outputs and 9 harpoons at once to dodge. That is what I call overkill. It demands skill, and coming out victorious is all the more satisfying because of it. And our next elemental gate has that same degree of challenge. The Fire Elemental Gate in the Lost City of Arcus is truly a marathon of a gate, as it has so much to explore, and the levels within its design is very clever. And I mean the literal physical levels, because you'll drop and then bounce back up again to gain access to different cannons and shoot down the hat. It's very rewarding to actually acquire this hat after you've completed so many tasks beforehand to do so. It's clearly an intricately designed elemental gate, and you need to explore it vigorously in order to find everything it has to offer. The ambush spot is really well hidden, and it takes you off guard and by surprise like an ambush should. Triple Flameslinger minions are as tough as you'd expect, and it makes the treasure chest seriously worth it. This sequence with the Flameslinger minions also gives legendary memorable fights similar to the Gilgren ambush I talked about earlier. But moving along to number 5, we have the Tech Elemental Gate from Secret Vault of Secrets. The level design for this gate is so clever. The puzzles aren't easy, but the blocking off of certain sections is clearly very thought through and intricately designed. You must be clever and figure out which keys turn which blockades, and how you can get past those blockades by looping around to acquire all the collectibles. Few elemental gates in this franchise have this level of depth when it comes to their puzzle setups. This isn't something you solve so easily. You need to explore the elemental gate to actually figure out how everything works, and it never feels dull or repetitive when looping around the same sections, as it actually feels rewarding because you know you're along the right tracks when it comes to solving the puzzle. It's just a very well designed elemental gate, you can go as far to say, and one of the best that the franchise has to offer, hence why it has number 5 on the list right here. But just short of a bronze medal on this list is the water gate from Aerial Assault. My favourite elemental gates come out of Giants. This gate has so much to it. You buy a water scarder to access this elemental gate and it feels like a short level in and of itself. I love how hard the collectibles are to find here, because it makes it all the more rewarding when you do actually find them. It's a crowning achievement, at least it feels that way, which is a fine feeling indeed. Other collectibles, even within the level of Aerial Assault itself, aren't as well hidden, and as such they aren't as satisfying to find. Even the Elemental Gate requires a little bit of exploration to discover after a giant must Geronimo in order to find it, but it's not just the puzzles and the exploration that put depth into this Elemental Gate. There is also plenty of combat where you're given multiple options. You can either roll a massive ball, which is there for the entire section. In fact, when it comes to this massive ball, it's very clever level design. And here you have tight canals that you can easily push the ball down, so it's harder to lose control and lose progress, unlike the undead elemental gate in Battlefield, so it's not nearly as frustrating. But getting back to my point about combat, you can either use this massive ball to roll enemies over, dealing massive damage in a very satisfying manner, or you can fight them regularly where you have more agility and you'll be able to avoid enemy attacks much more easily because you're left vulnerable should you choose to roll around the massive ball. It's a fantastic elemental gate indeed, but receiving our bronze medal instead is the best life gate in the entire franchise, that being the life elemental gate from Know-It-All Island. Is an elemental gate where the layout is the exact same as Fallen Forest, which is why I like it so much. You could make the argument that it's lazy, as they're just reusing the same design and the same assets. I, however, love to see such an iconic level in the updated Trap Team graphics with the updated Trap Team mechanics, and it's like we're going back to play this iconic Spice Adventure level, but now with new Trap Team characters. Just admit it, playing Fallen Forest as Bushwhack sounds pretty cool, and this elemental gate is the closest we'll ever get to being able to do exactly just that. I wish more Trap Team elemental gates did stuff like this. The scaling is also a lot smaller here, making this well designed and very fast paced, so between the expansiveness of the elemental gate, the nostalgic kick I get when playing it, and the fast paced challenge, it's easy to see why this elemental gate is receiving the bronze medal for this video. But number 2 for me has to be my favourite Spyro's Adventure elemental gate. This one is memorable and iconic. It stands out above all else in Spyro's Adventure because of the excellent platforming design and the fantastic visuals. I'm obviously talking about the air elemental gate from Archean Armory. With patience and timing, this platforming becomes very rewarding. You combine the memorable level design with the great visuals and incredible music. What you have is an atmosphere which sticks with you. It's the perfect elemental gate for this level specifically as well. So in other words, fundamentally everything about this elemental gate just works. It all clicks and connects together in a perfect balance. I can't get it out of my head for that specific reason, and that is why it is deserving of being number 2 on this list. But my number 1 overall favourite elemental gate actually comes from one of my least favourite levels of the entirety of the franchise. Midnight Museum is capable of getting at least one thing right, and that is the magic elemental gate. This takes creativity to the next level because hazards here are invisible. You need to wear a helmet in order to see the hazards, but you can't get there and back before the helmet expires, so you need to remember where the hazards are in order to avoid them. The only downside is that the hazards don't damage you nearly enough, so the challenge isn't very punishing. But that doesn't take away from how unique and memorable this concept is. I wish this mechanic could have been expanded upon and fleshed out because it's just that good. making this elemental gate from Midnight Museum easily the best one the entire franchise has to offer. Even if we saw this mechanic return for a level in Superchargers, I think it would have been perfect. Imagine driving down a road in Superchargers and having to mesmerize for pathways because it keeps vanishing on you whenever you're not equipped to see the invisible roads, mind you. Now that would have been awesome, and it's such a shame that we have the perfect elemental gate here at Midnight Museum and that's all it will ever be, just an elemental gate. But now with that all having been said and done, I hope you've enjoyed today's top 10. If you have, be sure to smash that subscribe button in order to keep up to date with all of my awesome Skylanders videos. Let's get into the outro without further ado. I cannot in good conscience end of this video without first thanking all of my incredible channel members whose continued support help make these videos possible. Without them, these videos would be near impossible to make, so from the bottom of my heart, I truly appreciate every last one of them. If you enjoyed this video and would like to see more, there are plenty of options on screen now to explore, and please consider subscribing to keep up to date with all my content. On that note, this video is coming to an end, so thank you so much as always for watching. Until the next video arises, peace!